So I wanted to update you guys about the farm. It's not great news, but before you run away, I just wanted to start out by saying I'm still optimistic. So here's the backstory. I rented a car, and my friend and I drove up on Thursday, and our GPS broke about halfway through the trip, and I didn't have a map because I didn't think we would need one. I was paying for this rental car GPS, and apparently technology is just not foolproof, and we ended up in Nevada, and it was nice. We got to go to Lake Tahoe for about an hour, get our feet in the water, take a few pictures, and it was really fun actually, and it was a nice little preface to what was about to happen. So after our 9 hours of driving, we ended up getting to the property at dark, and it was a little bit complicated, like more so than I thought, to get in. So we tried, and we ended up on this dirt road for about 45 minutes and then turned around, just couldn't figure out exactly where we were going. So we went down to this little town that was nearby, and we parked in the United States Postal Office parking lot and slept in the car together. And thank God I had Jesse with me, because at this point I was so frustrated, but he had the foresight to bring blankets. We didn't even plan on staying over, but we had extra food in case, and he had brought some blankets, so we were not terribly freezing, even though at some point it did drop down to about 37 degrees that night, and we woke up just cold and miserable. And I woke up around 6 in the morning, and that would have been Friday, and I went into the post office and I spoke to a woman who was wonderful, and she told me the property's history and the town's history, and there are only about 15 houses in that town. It's a really small, intimate place. Luckily for us, everyone that we met was very welcoming and inviting and happy to answer questions. They weren't condescending, talking to some young people from the city who had very ignorant, basic questions about how to get internet, how people get their water. Apparently everyone has a well there, and I mean, just I loved the answers and I loved the scenery, but I was also hearing some kind of red flags the entire time. I heard that one night in the span of a few hours, 5 feet of snow fell, and no one was expecting that, and everyone was holed up in their house. And I was just thinking how terrible that would be if we had these little individual cabins on the farm and everyone was snowed into them without any preparation for that. So also, the soil is just way too dry and alkaline. Apparently no one is able to garden at that altitude with that kind of soil condition. And one woman who made fun of my sparkly shoes told me that her friend was a retired gardener, and she moved up there and had a really expensive, nice greenhouse, and she was not able to get anything to grow. Things just don't get ripe up there, and that was a big blow, and that was probably one of the most difficult things to hear. And I mean, without agriculture, I don't have my farm. Additionally, it was just incredibly difficult to get into the property. I had been told that you drove right up to the reservoir, were able to park, and then hike for about 1.5 miles, something like maybe a 20-minute walk. And so that's what we were expecting. Instead, we learned from locals that you would have to drive, park the car at the base of a hill, walk up about 2.5 miles to the reservoir, which would take about 2 hours, they told us, and then from there you had to walk down, and you were walking through several people's private property. I was told that the reservoir was contaminated by the cows that were roaming around, and that the creek that ran from it wasn't even ours. It was Bureau of Land Management, and it was also the woman who owned the reservoirs. So we drove about 1,300 miles in 2 days, and were in the car for about 29 hours. It was kind of an ordeal. It was definitely worth it to find out that this was not the right property. I always would have wondered if we hadn't have gone. Part of me wishes that I hadn't spent, $200 on the rental car and gotten lost and had to take off work, but it's life. Some things don't go your way, so no to this farm, maybe yes to the next. I'm kind of crestfallen. I'm sorry to have gotten your guys' hopes up. My own were very invested. I thought that this was it, and it definitely is not. I mean, how am I supposed to have an intentional community with vegetables and an orchard and an organic permaculture garden and rescues and all of this stuff if I can't even get anything to grow there? And where's the water supposed to come from? I'm not going to be able to drill some $10,000 well that's 2,000 feet deep. That's just not practical. So at this point, I'm thinking about Oregon. I know that it rained there all the time. I visited a few times, once when I was going to visit colleges up there. I didn't really go to college, but it's beautiful. It's essentially a rainforest, and I know that the area when I visited was pretty economically depressed. There was a lot of unemployment, so I would love to go there and take advantage of the cheap land prices and be able to hire people and have people live on the farm for free, and they can just enjoy themselves and maybe have a better sense of purpose and learn a lot. And I want lots of wonderful people around me, like hippy dippy granola, people who love nature types, and I think that Oregon is a good place to find people like that. So I will be checking out that more and more, and I hope that you guys are having a great Labor Day weekend, and I will definitely keep you updated and talk to you all very soon. And yeah, I'm so excited to share this process with you guys. It's not always going to be a smooth sail, but it's important to talk about it, and this is something that you may have to go through if you're trying to do the same thing. Maybe you'll be smarter. Where I made mistakes, you'll be able to learn from them.